Welcome in. Sports by the Book is the show. South Point Studio, the site. I'm Jeff Parles, Alex White, alongside March 5th. There's no Cinco de Marzo, right? That's not a holiday?
No, unfortunately, no.
Okay. We're 2 months away from that. You doing all right?
Doing good.
Right?
We've got a lot of good games. Both of us, I think, have more plays than normal on a Tuesday.
Depends. These conference tournaments, they're starting in the smaller leagues.
Yep.
I did a few things I normally don't do. I can tell you that. We'll get into those as we go along. But it is quite the day. By the way, real quick, just looking at the show today, Danny Burke's with us in about 15 minutes. We'll detour to the NBA, maybe even some baseball futures as well for DB when we get into that. He's on a Tuesday this week.
Yes, normally
because,
Wednesday.
Eli Hershkovich will be joining you and Matt Neverett tomorrow to talk college hoops.
Looking forward to that.
Be good there. Cantina Media, where you can find Eli's work, and I actually pronounced his last name correct. So that'll be the only time I have to do that because Matt will be the one leading the interview tomorrow. Let's get into it, Alex. Let's start in college hoops. Let's start with America's darling, South Florida. Maybe America's darling. I don't even know that would count it as that. So many people just want them to not cover a game for once. Not you, though, Alex White. They take on Tulane, who has been mentioned on this show a lot because of their propensity to play high-scoring games. 156.5 on the total tonight. South Florida laying 7.5 at home. Again, Bulls are still pretty much in a scenario where they gotta win the American Athletic Conference tournament. Forget winning these last two games. Just get it done in Fort Worth. And you're going to the big dance. You don't even have to sweat it out.
Yeah, I went ahead and laid the 7.5 here with South Florida. I think they are going to keep this streak going. Longest win streak right now in the country. 14-2 straight up at home. 12-3 against the spread. Tulane 0-6 straight up and 1-5 against the spread in their last 6. This is the first time these two see each other this year, so I like South Florida to be ready for this and not caught off guard at all. So I thought 7.5 was a small price here. I've made them about a 10-point favorite at home against Tulane. So I did lay this big number. I think that's my only big favorite of the night.
Well, speaking of another big favorite, Tar. Very good. McCormick's here today, so I knew he would give me that at least. Heels, big favorites. Senior day, right? The Duke games in Durham this weekend. So senior night at the Dean Dome. Heels, big favorites against the Fighting Irish 16, Alex. I couldn't do anything here. This is, again, for North Carolina. They're still in the mix for a 1 seed. I think they need to win this game, beat Duke, and then win the ACC tournament, and then probably get some help mixed in there, even though an ACC tournament championship and a win at Cameron Indoor would probably mean beating Duke thrice this year, which would be pretty impressive. But this is one I'm going to stay off, even though I will say Notre Dame has actually played very well the last month. They've won 5 of 6. They beat Clemson over the weekend after beating Wake Forest. So they're beating reasonable teams back-to-back games. It's just a lot to ask them to go on the road in senior night, even though it is a big number. I don't really have any interest in laying it with UNC, but I can't quite get there on Notre Dame.
I completely agree with you, Jeff. I wrote that exact same thing. 5-1 in their last 6, this Notre Dame team. But I also had to write in there a note that this is also a team who lost to Virginia by 12 points. So that should tell you a lot about where they are. I think that number is just right here at 16. I like the 14.5 a little bit better, getting a little bit closer to taking the points with Notre Dame. But, yeah, nothing for me in this one. I think my numbers had a little bit of a lean to the over, but looking at how these two play, especially Notre Dame really slowing it down, I stayed off at the total as well.
Let's go to the game of the night in college hoops. Let's go there. Peacock exclusive, baby. Illinois hosting Purdue, the game of the year in the Big Ten's regular season. So we know the deal with Illinois at this point. We know they are amazing on offense. They are terrible on defense. The last time these teams met in the West Lafayette, high-scoring game, 161 points, 83-78. Purdue got it done. Now scene shifts to Champaign. Purdue, with a win tonight, will clinch an outright Big Ten championship. Illinois can, at best, tie Purdue. They can't hop them. So Purdue at least already has that clinched in that they could They will have the 1 seed. They've already clinched the 1 seed, but they haven't clinched a full outright Big Ten championship just yet. 2.5 tonight, Fighting Illini laying it at home. I actually laid 2 earlier with Illinois. Home court matters in this game. And yes, Illinois has that perplexing loss earlier in the year to Maryland, but that is ancient at this point. That's back on January the 14th. I am okay with the Illinois and Kentucky are kind of in the same meld. Because unlike Alabama, who's all offense and no defense,
right,
which are the 3 teams that are at a high level that are all offense, no defense this year. Alabama can really only beat you when their threes are going in. If they can't, you can slow them down. Both Kentucky and Illinois, and especially Illinois, can beat you in multiple ways. Illinois is only 100th in the country in three-point efficiency. That's solid, but it's not elite. And they still have the 3rd best offense in the country, even with an average three-point shooting game. That tells me you are a diverse offense. And even though Purdue likes running instead of having to play slow, as we've seen through conference play, I think this is Illinois' night. I like the Fighting Illini. I laid 2. Are we back to 2 behind us now, Ryan? We just go back there? All right, there we go. I just moved back to 2. So the market, as normally, disagrees with me. So I like Illinois on this one.
I think just a small play there on the hook with Purdue, but I'm with you, and I think that Illinois is the right side here. I made this game about a pick, factored in some revenge here, so that would put me a little bit more on Illinois at home. Jeff, I really want to take the over here, and I guess the market does agree. It's moved up a little bit from 164, but I couldn't get there yet, and it's kind of how you mentioned that first game, very high scoring. I don't know if we're going to see that exact same thing again. My number is right where it is, so I usually don't bet on that, but what do you think? Could we get there with a first half over or even a full game over with how these two play, especially Illinois? I mean, 70 possessions on average, and both of them are right there at about 17.7 seconds offensively and defensive average possession time.
I mean, if I were Illinois, I would just dive into the running gun in this game. I don't mind that Purdue prefers to play running gun as opposed to slow. We saw that in the Ohio State game where Purdue kind of lost it a little bit when they got slowed down. They had the big turnover game in that game that lost in Columbus a few weeks ago. But if you're Illinois, this is how I feel about Kentucky, and we've seen it with Kentucky recently, and they've gotten better. Just play into your strengths.
Right.
Be the bazooka on offense you are. And you know what? The bazooka can work. Even against an elite team, game's in your building. So, get Edey in foul trouble. You're in really good shape also, and you can get that home whistle on the senior night. So I would have looked at Illinois here as a 2-point favorite in this one. Ed Cooley gets another shot at his old team, the Providence Friars, tonight. Georgetown 8-point dogs. Georgetown had a real chance to win over the weekend, and they did what they've done best this year: lose games. They were ahead for a good chunk of the game against Xavier, ended up losing by 5 in a wackadoo game that featured almost 200 points at 98-93. 146.5. Providence squarely on the bubble, 8-point favorites in this one, Alex.
Yeah, I missed the best number here. I was looking to go under this at 150.5, but now it has moved all the way down. So there's nothing I can really do here. Providence, it is interesting with that loss to Nova. They moved from the 6 seed all the way to the 8 seed. I think they will be pretty motivated in this one as a bounce back spot, but I think that number is correct here. 8, even on the road. Not really interested in grabbing the points with Georgetown. I would only look at the under, but I think we missed the best value.
Bubble team in action in Athens tonight. Ole Miss nearly blew an 18-point lead to Mizzou over the weekend, held on, won the game. Now they go to Athens. Ole Miss squarely on the bubble. I don't think they're a tournament team, especially based off their resume and market. I mean, you're a 2-point underdog on the road at Georgia. Market kind of tells you the same thing there, Alex. I have nothing on this game, but if you made me play it, I would take the small home favorite in the Bulldogs here to basically put the death nail in the at-large chances of Ole Miss without a deep run in Nashville.
See, I was looking at the under in this one as well, under 148.5. I'm still kind of debating this. It's just Ole Miss's trends have been the other way. They are 9-4 to the over on the road, 4-1 in their last 5. On the flip side, Georgia, a little bit better, 16-13 to the under this season, but I still haven't got there completely. But if it was a play for me, it would be that under 148.5.
Clemson and Syracuse, a bunch of orange in this one. First meeting at the Dome. Clemson went on the road, won the game. Clemson coming off losing at Notre Dame. I'm a little surprised that Clemson is as highly looked after in these bracketology. The resume is fine. I think it's a solid resume. I don't think they're a 5 seed. I think they're closer to a 7 seed with the way that they have at least looked in the conference play. Other than that win against North Carolina, really that and the win at Alabama, that really changes their resume in a humongous way from bubble team to safely in. They're 9.5 tonight against Syracuse, who has been. They've been lucky. Let's just say that. Their efficiency numbers do not scream good team. They scream below average team, and they're 4th place in the ACC entering tonight at 11-8. I would only look to the Clemson Tigers in this game, even as a big home favorite. I can't quite get there because I don't like laying almost double digits with a team I don't really trust. But this does scream fade Syracuse with, again, Syracuse has won 4 in a row. 3 of those games they got pretty fortunate in. They had to win against UNC. I think Syracuse is due for a whipping at this point. I would take Clemson tonight, if anything.
That's a great. Okay, so help me with this ACC. I'm looking at their standings. Top 4, of course, get a bye to the quarters. 5 through 9 get a bye in the first game. We have Syracuse sitting here at 4 and Clemson in the 6th seed right now, but just a game back, so it is very important for both of them. It's hard to tell which team you can really use the motivation factor for here.
Well, for Syracuse, they need to win every game humanly possible to give themselves a possibility, and again, I think it's a long shot at best of an accidental berth to the NCAA tournament. I think it would take a lot of teams on the bubble crumbling down the stretch to even get Syracuse on the bubble. If Clemson wins tonight, they play Wake over the weekend, who, as we know, Wake is going to need that game to keep their at-large prospects alive after a really just horrendous weekend away from Winston-Salem, losing to both Notre Dame and Virginia Tech during the week last week. I don't know. I don't know how much motivation really plays into this. You're just trying to win a basketball game at this point if you're both of these teams. And Clemson safely in. Syracuse needs a whole boatload of help if they're going to get in to the NCAA tournament. I want to hit 2 more games before we get to our guy DB. Oklahoma hosting Cincinnati. How about the market betting the Sooners tonight? Up to 6 in some spots, 5.5 behind us. I like this overnight under 138.5. It's moved to half point, so still don't mind it under at all at the 138. Oklahoma is coming off of an absolute anomaly game against Houston, to say the very least. A game that was totaled in the 120s that ended up 87-85 in a 64-possession game. That's an anomaly if I've ever heard it. So regression to the mean in a big way for Oklahoma's offense tonight.
Yeah.
For Cincinnati, they almost blew a big lead. They ended up holding on with a big 3 late to beat K-State on Saturday afternoon in their building at Fifth Third Bank Arena. I would only look to the under. I think this is a massive, massive regress to the mean game for both of these offenses.
I am with you 100%. That is actually one of my favorite plays here, under 138.5. Made it about 134, so we have some value there. And you're right, they shot 52% against that number 1 defense in the country in Houston, and actually almost had a chance to pull off that upset. So I agree with you. I think we're going to see some regression, and I like this under a lot, especially when you're looking at 2 teams when their defense is a lot better than their offense. And we have this with both Cincinnati and Oklahoma, both in the top 30 in adjusted defense efficiency with Cincy and Oklahoma defensively. So I like this under.
Let's hit DePaul. How about that?
Your favorite.
The best there is. Hey, both winless teams in their Power 5+1 conference are in action tonight. We'll get Mizzou in a little bit. DePaul is 19 behind us. It's as much as 20 with St. John's on the road in Chicago tonight. Look, we talked about this with St. John's. They are right on the bubble. Depending on whose bracketology you look at, they're either the last team in, the last team out, team 70. Like, they're right there with this win streak they're on of 3 in a row and really thumping Butler their last time out. Only a bad thing could happen to St. John's tonight. So I'm not touching this. I don't want any part to do with DePaul, even though they did win the second half against Butler. They almost won the second half against Butler, but did not cover that game at home against the Bulldogs on Saturday.
I think this number is right, that 19, even on the road with St. John. So they are in the 6th seed right now in the Big East. Top 5 get a bye going into the tournament. So I think they are going to be playing very hard in these next 2 very winnable games. They are at DePaul, and then they have Georgetown at home for their last game.
You got to win them both.
They got to win them both. I think they will, and then they give themselves a shot at that bye going into the tournament.
You win both. Forget the Big East tournament for a second here. Just thinking the broader picture for the NCAA tournament. The Big East, we know UConn's getting a 1 seed. Marquette's probably getting a 2 seed, and Creighton's either getting a 3 or a 4. And we know those teams are getting in. Then you have the 4, the creamy middle of the conference, the 4 teams of Seton Hall's, Villanova, Providence, and St. John's, who are all squarely on the bubble.
Yes.
All of them. I think 3 of the 4 end up making it. I don't know which 3 of the 4 end up getting there. But I think whoever, again, the way that the Big East tournament ends up going, Seton Hall the 5, Villanova the 6, Providence the 7, St. John's the 8 as of this moment. We don't have a scenario as of this moment where one of these teams could actually play each other in an opening round scenario other than that 5-4. So Villanova and St. John's, I think, are the safest ones at the moment. But we'll see how it plays out over the last week plus in the Big East. That's, again, that is the most bubble-licious of the conferences at the moment right now, for sure. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, our guy, Danny Burke, talks some NBA, maybe some baseball as well. DB joins us next. Sports by the Book, South Point.
South Point offers all the types of entertainment you'd expect at a first-class Las Vegas resort. Did you know our 400-seat showroom is one of Las Vegas's top destinations for live entertainment? Enjoy live performances by classic Vegas entertainers, bands, and today's hottest comedians, plus a rock and dance floor. You can also enjoy live entertainment at the Grandview Lounge, where you'll feel all the vibes of old Las Vegas. Enjoy the music, and if you love to laugh, don't miss The Dirty at 12:30, our very own free comedy show. Every Friday night at 12:30 a.m. in the Grandview Lounge. The Dirty is 100% free, so arrive early. Go to southpointcasino.com or call the box office at 77136 for today's performances at the showroom and the Grandview Lounge. When you're ready for your favorite cocktail, stop in and unwind at one of our 7 specialty lounges. There's a bar around every corner, because you're in Vegas, baby. South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you've still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
Welcome back in. Sports by the Book is the show. South Point Studio, the site. I'm Jeff Parles. Alex White is here as well. And now joining us this week on a Tuesday, our guy Danny Burke with us right now. Burke's Beat is the podcast, burksbeat.com, the website where all the write-ups are. DB, good afternoon, buddy.
Yeah, good to see you guys. Appreciate you having me on as always. Hope you're doing well.
We're hanging in there. It's not as windy anymore here as
That's
it was
right.
over the weekend. Alex was concerned for her health with the wind over the weekend.
I saw those videos, all the the pool chairs going all over the place. I felt bad for you guys a little bit, but at the same time, at least you still get weather. So you only got half of my sadness for you out there in the desert.
Danny, you should not feel bad for us. That's all I can say. You should not feel bad for us at all, especially with what you have to deal with on a yearly basis in winters in Chicago. All right, let's go to the NBA. You know what, Danny? I want to ask you this real quick before we get to your picks tonight, because everyone's looking at the top of the playoff races. I just want to ask you real quick on the on the front of the teams that are currently in the play-in picture, especially in the Western Conference right now, where right now, if the Western Conference playoffs started today, the 4 play-in teams, Sacramento's the 7, team that was the 3 last year and is still a pretty good team, even though they've been wildly inconsistent. Dallas, arguably the best player in the league right now in Luka, and a very talented team around him. Oh, and by the way, the Lakers and the Warriors are 9-10. One of those teams wouldn't even make it to a second play-in game. Just as you look down the stretch here, especially in that competitive West, I'll even throw the Pelicans, who are a game and a half clear Sacramento, and the Suns, who are half game clear of the Kings for that to stay in the bracket and not in to go through the play-in scenario. How do you change your handicapping potentially in those West games featuring these teams with all of this to play for to get into that 1 through 6 so you don't have to endure the stress of a play-in scenario?
Yeah, I mean, if it ends up being these 4 teams, it would be an insane play-in tournament on the Western Conference because Sacramento, as you mentioned, they've been a little up and down as of late. If anybody follows me on Twitter, you've probably seen me call them a fraudulent team, i.e. blowing a 20-point lead at home to my Chicago Bulls, which no team in the NBA should be doing, yet somehow the Kings managed to do it against an inferior team once again. So, look, half of me's happy because the Bulls got the win. The other half is, again, it's another excuse for the Bulls to stand pat and do nothing. But my point is, Sacramento, yes, has a lot of offensive pieces, but they are just not built to go deep. I still absolutely am committed to calling this team fraudulent and think they will be an early exit, especially if it's going to be a gauntlet of a play-in atmosphere like we see right now. Golden State's been an intriguing team as of late. They've been a fun team to back. They've been on a hot streak since they've got Draymond Green back. We know they have Chris Paul back in the mix. They can go, I guess I would say their absolute highest ceiling would be the Western Conference Finals. Realistically, I don't think they get to that. Yeah, I give them the edge in terms of getting out of the playing game scenario, but they got to be hit. I mean, Steph can't have one bad game because, yeah, some of their role players are stepping up, but if Kuminga's not, getting production down low and not utilizing his athleticism, then they're really weak in terms of their big men, and that could hurt going up against a team like the Lakers. You could thrive against a team like Dallas. Their additions with PJ Washington, Gafford and company, it really hasn't come through just yet. I think Dallas, out of those teams, probably has the best chance to make it the furthest, and value-wise may be worth it more so than those other teams. It's not to say that I've bet it or necessarily recommending it, but that squad may have the best value because you arguably have the MVP in Doncic. And again, you need some of those new acquisitions to get acclimated and to put a little bit more effort on defense. And if they can finally do that, Dallas does have the depth, in my mind, to compete with some of these other teams and make a run in the West. But Golden State, I think they'll end up falling short because too much is riding on Curry. The Lakers, they'll be competitive. Again, they're an infuriating team themselves, kind of like the Kings, not as bad. And that's why I think you narrow it down to the Mavericks and Golden State and give that edge to Dallas to come out among those teams.
Well, let me set you up with this. So on Sunday, we saw Boston beat Golden State 140-88. Do you think that says more about this Celtics team or more about Golden State?
I think it's more so about Boston. And obviously, you have to take that game into context as well. I was on the side of Boston, except I put them in a little parlay with the Cavs, who are another team that I am now classifying as fraudulent, but obviously wish I would have just done Boston outright. But the reason that was such a tough spot for Golden State is because that was their 4th game of their road trip. They had done a back-to-back, and I actually backed them on the second leg of that back-to-back on this road trip. So they beat the Knicks, and then their flight didn't get into Toronto till about 8 a.m. that next day. They still managed to scratch and claw their way to a victory against the Raptors, who ended up losing Scotty Barnes in that game. But the box score is not a true indication of what that matchup really was. Golden State was lucky to end up on top and lucky that Barnes ended up exiting the game early. So I think that was a horrid scheduling spot for Golden State. Does that mean that they're better than Boston? No, Boston is for sure the better team. They would probably dominate them. Not to that extent, but good enough in a normal circumstance. So you got to recognize what the Celtics team is. And I know people say we talk about this every year with Boston, but I've really been a naysayer on the Celtics for quite some time. I said they would never win with Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, and Tatum, but they got Marcus Smart out of the picture. They bring in Holiday. They bring in Porzingis. This is a new look team, and they have a way easier path out of the Eastern Conference. So I think that does go to show just how lethal and legit the Celtics team really is, guys.
Boston setting an NBA record with their third 50-plus point win of the year, second in 6 games as well. Do it in the playoffs. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Do it in the playoffs for this group. That is, yes, been to the NBA Finals, but last year came back from 3-0 down, got destroyed in Game 7 at home. Got to do it at some point. Got to hoist that banner up there. They haven't won, of course, since KG, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen. And Doc Rivers. How about that? Won that title back in the
we
first
got to
year.
do our weekly Doc Rivers update, Jeff.
Hey,
I
gave
it a little bit.
I made it positive there. I mean, the Bucks are playing.
Right.
The Bucks are playing pretty well right now. 6 straight wins out of the All-Star break. I'll say this before we get to tonight's games, Danny. It really does feel like at this point it is Milwaukee or Boston. There really is no other choice in the Eastern Conference unless the Knicks get fully healthy. I'm not banking on that because it feels like Brunson's suffering a different injury every other game at this point. Or if Joel Embiid comes back. But their route just is going to be too difficult in order to win 3 series to get to the finals. It really does feel like at this point that Milwaukee's the only one that can beat Boston, but then they have Doc Rivers coaching the team.
I can't wait. I mean, the content from you on this show and on Twitter, if Doc Rivers inevitably falls short again, is going to be a gold mine. So I'm pumped for it. But you're right. Look, the only other true contender would be the Knicks if they get healthy. People could be clamoring for the Cavs out there. But as I briefly mentioned already in this segment, they're kind of chartering in that fraudulent territory. They don't know how to close out a game. And Donovan Mitchell, yes, he'll get healthy in time and whatnot. But their lack of depth is still really concerning, too. So, yeah, if the Knicks don't get healthy, it's certainly Milwaukee and Boston.
Just get a 60-foot heave to win a game, Danny. That's all you need in order to get it done for that. Speaking of the Knicks, they're at home tonight at Madison Square Garden, short favorites without Jalen Brunson tonight against the Hawks, who of course have been without Trae Young for about 2 weeks now. Hawks right now would be the 10 seed in the Eastern Conference. That's gross at 8 games under 500. But here you are tonight. The Knicks are 1.5-point favorite at home. Total 214 in this one.
Yeah, the Hawks and the Bulls are the playing game kings. They love chartering into that territory, Jeff. But yes, Trae Young has been absent for the past several games. No Jalen Brunson tonight. Now, I did take a stab at New York, and I was leaning more toward thinking that Jalen would actually play based on some of the things I was reading. And yes, he exited that game against Cleveland early, but they said it's because he banged knees with Hartenstein. So I thought it was more just, all right, a little bit of a bruise, kind of a shock getting it hit that hard, but perhaps he would be able to play tonight. Nevertheless, I still made the bet with the intention that I would like this side, even if Brunson wasn't going to be a part of it. Now, I was just hoping I was getting the cheaper number before it was announced he was playing. That's not going to be the case. But the reason why I still like New York here is because we have to recognize who this Atlanta team is. And it is a team that, I don't want to say doesn't give a crap, but defensively, they certainly do not. They are dead last in the association defensively, an effective field goal percentage, 26 in defensive points per 100 possessions allowed. And when it comes to defending the 3 ball, which the Knicks offensively are taking a majority of their shot attempts from, 37% to be exact, Atlanta ranks 28th at defending the 3 ball. We saw how well they excelled against Cleveland when they were dealing with that adversity without Brunson hitting those threes. And I know it's a lot to ask for, but at the same time, not really when this is what the Knicks specialty has been when they've needed to come up in situations where their backs are against the wall. So because of how bad this Atlanta defense is and how gritty the Knicks can be, they'll be at home inspired after that win, a tough one on the road against Cleveland, home crowd behind them. I still think it's a good spot here for the Knicks. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be a tough one to sweat out, but I do think they have the edge. And let's not forget, because Trae Young is out, that's absolutely going to hurt this Atlanta offense. Yeah, they won the first game after he got injured. That team playing a little bit more motivated, going out there going, all right, we could win without him. Then they had the Jazz at home. Jazz don't play well away from home, and their defense is horrid. And then they played Brooklyn twice on the road, and their offense really took a hit. I think the absence of Trae Young is finally setting in, and we're going to see the Knicks be able to limit them, and then the Knicks do enough offensively. So buy low spot on the Knicks here. I think they get it done again without Brunson.
Danny, you've been great at prop bets. You are looking at one in the 6-seed Orlando Magic. They are laying 8.5 on the road at Charlotte. Total in that one, 207.5. But like I mentioned, you're looking at props in this one.
Yeah, this Charlotte team has just been my favorite squad to make bets surrounding them, whether it's taking the points because the market hasn't adjusted or venturing into the props, as you alluded to, Alex, which is what I'm doing tonight with Brandon Miller. I went over 18.5 points scored for the rookie. A majority of his shots are coming from mid-range, 40%. He's connecting on 43% of them. Now, they're hosting the Orlando Magic tonight. The Magic are a pretty solid young team. Defensively, they're above average in most categories, but where they do falter is defending the mid-range. They're allowing opponents to connect on about 45% of their shot attempts from mid-range, which ranks them 25th in the NBA. And specifically, when you look at where they have these struggles in the mid-range area, it's from short mid-range. And that's where a majority of mid-range classified shots for Brandon Miller are coming from, specifically short mid-range. He already dropped 20 against them earlier this year. Yeah, that was a new look team, or pardon me, it was a different look team. Now they have a new look team. But even with this new look team, they're missing some weapons. They're missing Cody Martin. They're missing Seth Curry. So Brandon Miller's got to step up even more than he usually does with the lack of offensive weapons and depth that Charlotte has at this moment. So you factor that in, what he's done recently, take more shots than he has this whole season, average more over the last month than he has all year. I think 18.5 is a good spot for him to go over tonight against the Magic.
Danny, I want to shift to Major League Baseball here. Spring training is a few weeks in. We've talked about win totals a little bit on this show, and it's still funny to see the Dodgers over 100 and be like, "Oh, how can you even look at betting the under?"
Right.
But I just want to ask you this because, of course, you're in Chicago. Both the Central divisions look like they're messes going into this year. The Cardinals did not hit a home run in spring training until today, which is almost impossible for how long spring training's been going on. Your Cubs and the Cardinals, and most books are co-favorites to win the division. Either some books have the Cardinals as the favorite, some books have the Cubs as the favorite. Reds second in most shops, then the Brewers and then the Pirates around 20-1 at most places. What would you do here? I really don't think the Cardinals' awful year last year was an aberration. I just think that they're a mediocre baseball team at this point. The Brewers are way worse. The Pirates aren't ready yet. And I'm not buying the Reds, which kind of leads me to your team, but you have your reservations on them as you and I have talked about it off the air before.
Yeah, it's really hysterical breaking down both Central divisions, as you're mentioning, Jeff, but especially the NL Central, because you're right. You could nitpick every team and go, I don't have conviction whatsoever, but ultimately it should lead you to the Cubs. But simultaneously, it's like, why would I want to make a bet that's going to have to be sitting there for 6 months on a wager that realistically is going to offer better odds at some point throughout the season, just because of how volatile and really just crappy this NL Central is going to be? The Cubs are inevitably going to get on their cold streaks. They're still slacking when it comes to their relief pitching. Yes, they added some players and they bring back Bellinger. That's nice. They get some younger guys who they still need to go out there and prove their worth. But if they don't do that, then you talk about a team with lack of depth. The Cubbies are certainly one of those squads. They got by because their bats were explosive last season. Now, yes, that can be replicated, but I do think it could also be regressed in that they did overachieve to a certain extent. You're still hoping some of these key players can come through with the starting rotation too. You bring over Imanaga from Japan. Obviously, if he can pan out, that's fantastic. They bring over Michael Busch from the Dodgers, one of their highly touted prospects, one of those younger guys that needs to do well. Same with Peter Crow Armstrong in the outfield. So you're banking on a lot of what ifs with this Cubbies team. Also, how about like Jamison Taillon? I mean, he didn't do squat in the rotation for him last year. He has to perform. So I got to wait a little bit and see if I can trust this Cubs team. But I like that you mentioned the Cardinals, Jeff, and you put it perfectly. I don't really think it was an aberration either. I took them under 85.5 wins. What did they do to make themselves better? Their offensive bats are getting older with Goldie and Arenado and company. Pitching staff-wise, Sonny Gray, all right, not too shabby. Michaelis is very volatile. Kyle Gibson, old veteran who maybe gives you a good start every now and again. Lance Lynn is a nightmare. Matz has passed his prime. So they brought over these veteran pitchers who really are not stars whatsoever. Their pitching rotation is going to be a big struggle. Their bullpen, I don't even know what to expect out of there. And then their bats, I think, are just going to continue to plateau. So, yeah, I bet the under for the Cardinals, 85.5. I'm with you on St. Louis. Think it's going to be another tough year.
before we let you go, AL Central, just keeping it in your neck of the woods. I mean, the White Sox, I've seen the White Sox as high as 100-1 to win the AL Central, which is flabbergasting. Just that division is so bad. And you're 100-1 to win that division at some shops. It's mostly in the 50-1 range in most places. But, I mean, Minnesota did nothing this offseason because they're dealing with the fallout of the regional TV contract nonsense that's going on for some of these teams. The Tigers and the Guardians have the same odds. What have the Tigers done other than add Jason Benetti to the broadcast booth, which doesn't help their on-field product. It only helps their broadcast booth. The Guardians are still kind of the same team, even though they replaced a Hall of Fame manager with a first-time manager. Francona out, retired. Stephen Voigt now the manager for the Guards. And then there sits the Kansas City Royals, who are the only team this offseason that actually did anything of a positive note in this division, but I just don't think they're far enough along to say, okay, they can win the 84 games that is probably required to win this division.
Yeah, and again, you're putting it exactly how I would say it, Jeff. I mean, first of all, this isn't a division that I want to touch with a 10-foot pole in terms of futures, unless you want to take one of those longer shots. I mean, yeah, the Twins are like the easy option to go with, but you're right, they're staying stagnant with what they had last year, and even still, they were a very frustrating group and really thrived at home, but otherwise struggled against competitive teams away from their home field. Detroit, no thank you. Cleveland, maybe, but the turnaround and turnover kind of makes me a little cautious with them. White Sox are still a nightmare top down. Again, just complete nightmare. Them losing Benetti's probably actually going to make them worse. Won't help the Tigers, but it's going to make the White Sox even more unbearable. And you mentioned the Royals, kind of one of those gritty, feisty teams last year. Obviously, they weren't good. They didn't end up great, but from time to time, they were a squad that you could see some value on and kind of nitpick their situations and see them as a viable candidate. So, yeah, I mean, if you told me you wanted to take the long shot on the Royals, I wouldn't argue against you with it. But rather, the way I would look to approach it is just keep track of Kansas City consistently. See if these new additions are helping them and see which spots are really looking to be beneficial from a starting pitching rotation ideology, right? Like which pitcher have they performed most or their best with, and how is their offense done in specific splits? Yes, you're doing that for every game in general, but the Kansas City Royals probably going to be an underdog in more games than they won't be. So the market may kind of ignore them a little bit when they get these sneaky wins. That's probably how you want to look to approach as AL Central in general with these underdog positions, but primarily a team like Kansas City that I do think is going to not play to what their limitations should be on paper. So that's how I would look to go after it, Jeff.
It is going to be an awful division. And quite frankly, Danny, I've been in this camp for a while. It is ridiculous now in this age of the balanced schedule that we still have divisions. I'm cool with the leagues, even though the rules are the same. But there's no reason for 3 divisions anymore. And hopefully, whenever Major League Baseball expands to 32, which is coming sooner rather than later, that they either make it 2 divisions of 8, like they had in the past, or they just scrap them all together, go 2 leagues, get the pure 1 through 6 that we should get. But that's a different argument for a different day. We would be here till 7 o'clock at night if we had been going on that all the way through. Danny Burke, our guy, we usually see him on Wednesdays. We saw him on Tuesday this week. On the tweet to Danny Burke 5. You also find his work at his podcast, Burke's Beat. You can also find him on the website at the exact same name, burksbeat.com. Danny, pleasure, man. We'll see you again next week.
Appreciate you guys, and I'll leave you with this to discuss. Alex, just ask Jeff if he's going to be making any futures bets on the Mets this season, because that's going to determine his attitude for the rest of the summer. Looking forward to hearing about it. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Danny.
Well, you know what you have to ask now.
Yeah, Jeff, do you plan on making any
I do not have any bets on the Mets as of this moment, nor do I have any plans on it because of the injury to Kodai Senga. That's the easy rationale on that. If he did not get hurt, I'd actually take him over.
Okay.
But because he got hurt, can't do it. Just not enough starting pitching in order to be where I want to be on those numbers. All right, we'll take a quick break and we get back to college hoops. A lot of games still to get to, including a lot of conference tournaments. I did a lot of things I normally don't do today on those games. That's next. Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south of the border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside. Or maybe you're in the mood for seafood. Big Sur Oyster Bar has fresh seafood prepared right before your eyes. Savor freshly shucked oysters, crab legs jambalaya, shrimp and lobster. Beers on tap and a selection of fine wines are perfect to pair with your seafood favorite. Whether lunch or dinner, you'll love this fun atmosphere, located just off the casino floor. Ready to shake things up? Step back in time and treat yourself to one of the oldest restaurant chains in the country. Steak and Shake, famous for original mouth-watering steak burgers and hand-dipped milkshakes in a variety of flavors. For some old-fashioned fun, try Steak and Shake.
It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
Welcome back in. Thank you, JR, for that great voiceover. As always, I'm Jeff Parles, Alex White alongside. We're happy to be with you. Big thanks to DB, Danny Burke, for hanging along with us today. Real quick, two games I want to just get quickly. Texas Tech, 2.5 on the road at Oklahoma State. It was a bad spot for them in West Virginia. They won. They covered. Similarly weird spot for them against a mediocre to bad Big 12 team. I would only take the home dog in this one, but we're going to probably pass when it's all said and done.
Agreed. Me too. I think that number 2.5 is just right, even on the road. So it was a pass for me as well.
Let's go to Dayton at St. Louis real quick. Also, A-10, even though they're not in first place in the A-10, they're still looked at as the best team because of their resume. Dayton, 9.5 in Middle America tonight. I'd actually take the Billikens plus the 9.5 in this game. I know Dayton lost their last time out in Chicago to Loyola, but I feel like there's just too many points. I know SLU isn't any good. I wish I was getting a full 10. But even at 9.5, I still think this is all right.
See, I have Dayton about 11.5 point favorite even on the road here, and it is a bounce back spot. But I'm with you. I mean, it's a lot of points to lay even on the road.
You want to keep it in Missouri? Stay there. Line hasn't moved. Auburn 11.5 in Columbia to take on Mizzou. Still winless in SEC play somehow. Very impressive job there this year from the Missouri Tigers. Auburn playing for seeding in the NCAA tournament. Also playing for a top 4 seed in the NCC tournament, which is a logjam with the top 5 teams right now, the 2 Alabama teams. I'll get to the Tide in a little bit. Auburn there, Kentucky there, Tennessee currently number 1, and South Carolina unexpectedly there in the top 4. 11.5 on the road for Auburn. Would you do anything with this?
I think you're okay to lay it, even on the road. I
a lot of points.
It is a lot of points. I didn't do it yet. I told you South Florida was my biggest favorite here at minus 7.5. But if I were to play this, I would definitely lay the points here with Auburn. First game of the year, so again, no surprises. And like you said, just a jam right there, both in the SEC and then working their way for the big NCAA tournament. So I think every game is very important here on out.
No, nothing for me. I thought Saturday was the day for Mizzou. It was not, which means that day is not coming in 2024 for them.
I have to agree with that.
I think it's very simple at this point. Their fate is sealed as an 0-19, including the conference tournament, is coming.
Well, that's not true. I mean, now they are just kind of playing like, okay, let's get the regular season done.
No, they're going to
Let's
get destroyed.
to the tournament.
I think they're going to get this. Mizzou's going to get destroyed tonight. I think this would be, if anything, a lay with Auburn. But it is a ton of points on the road in conference play. Auburn 5th by the tiebreaker right now, tied with Kentucky. Cats 4th on the virtue of their win in Auburn earlier in the season. keep it rolling. Let's go to Alabama. This game listed later on your cards at 6:45, 6:46. It's tipping in 15 minutes. I don't know why it ended up so low on the card today. But the Tide, dogs on the road, off their loss against Tennessee. Florida 2.5-point favorites. Total 176. Ridiculous total. I like it over. I expect, with the way these two teams play, and this is solely a pace bet more than anything, Bama 73 possessions a game. Florida 71 possessions a game. That's both good for top 33 in the country. Florida had a lower total than expected against South Carolina. Game went zooming over. It landed 158 when it was all said and done. I expect this game to be played in the 180s. I think Alabama wins, so I don't mind a small price on the money line as well on Bama, but I'm more confident in the total on this one, Alex.
I'm with you, and now you just told me that it starts in 15 minutes, so I might have to do a little bet while we're still on air.
That's okay. It's always allowed, Alex.
I thought I had some time to get that one in, but yeah, only over for me. Bama 10-3 to the over on the road, and then Tennessee. You mentioned 7 straight overs until their last game. Florida, 7 straight overs to their last game against Tennessee, 4-1 to the over in their last 5. So pace, like you said, makes a big difference. Both of them over 71 here in pace. So I love this one, and I leaned to the Gators a little bit after you put in the revenge factor. I can see why that number is 2.5, but Bama, it would be favored for me without that revenge factor. So stay away from me on the side. Only the over.
Let's go to Kansas. Jayhawks at home against K-State. Revenge spot for Kansas. Of course, these two teams met in Manhattan a few weeks ago. K-State won in overtime. By the way, Jerome Tang is 2 years in and is 13-0 in overtime in his coaching career at Kansas State. You want anomalies? That's one right there. But they're big dogs tonight. It's been all KU in the action from 10 to 12. There's even 12.5 out there. Total 143. I don't want anything to do with this at the bigger number, Alex. I think we're good here now. I thought at 10 you could justify laying it with Kansas, but not anymore.
Agreed. Don't chase a bad number here. I think 10 was the right number, especially with the revenge spot, but now 12, just a little bit out of control. So.
KU right now 5th in the Big 12. That would be their worst seeding ever under Bill Self. 20-plus years now.
Yeah.
Self in Lawrence. They've never been worse than 4th. This would be, if they end up 5th, would be the worst one under Self. Pretty amazing the run they have been on. Again, the longest streak without missing the NCAA tournament as well.
A lot of injuries.
Yeah, McCullough is in again tonight, so would expect to be a little bit better for KU tonight. Pittsburgh. Oh, wrong show. Sorry. Panthers, 8-point favorites at home against Florida State here. Panthers are getting closer. They're inching tighter to the bubble here.
They are.
Now, they really hurt that game against Clemson 2 weekends ago. If they had won that game, I think they might even be in that 69 to 72 range as opposed to the 72 to 76 range, which is where they're at right now. They're 8 at home against Florida State. You just got to handle your business. I don't know if I like laying 8, but I do expect Pitt to win this game comfortably. I don't know if 8 counts as comfortably, though, Alex.
No, I'm with you. I agree. I think 8 is the right number, but I do expect the Panthers to win this one. First game between these two of the year, and you're right. Pittsburgh is now ranked 43rd overall in KenPom, so they have just slowly been moving up. But if I were to do anything, I would find a partner with Pittsburgh here and play it money line. Yeah.
Another bubble team, Wake. Currently, Lenardi's last team in, Jerry Palm's last team out. 13.5 against Georgia Tech. First matchup between these two teams was in Atlanta, and Wake won by 29. That was actually Wake's one of only 2 road wins this year for Wake. Their other one came in Chestnut Hill against Boston College. 13.5, 151.5. I don't mind laying a lumber with Wake, actually. If you were to do anything with this, you can get away with laying 13.5 here.
Ooh. See, this one's tough for me because Georgia Tech has been playing better, 3-1 in their last 4 games, and actually pretty good wins, Syracuse, Miami, and Florida State. So, and then we on the other side, we have Wake, who has lost 2 in a row on the road. So I don't know, maybe a bounce back spot for Wake, and Georgia Tech kind of comes back down to reality is what you're thinking here. But I was leaning more towards the dog with that many points.
Keep it in town here. UNLV hosting San Diego State. Aztecs 2, and only 2 in this game now. It was 2.5 earlier, 135. I didn't know what to do with this game. Really didn't. At first, I was like, senior night. UNLV's playing pretty good basketball right now. At first, leaned to UNLV. Then so I stayed out of this. I just couldn't do anything with it because it's too indecisive on what side I like. I think there's a good case for both teams on the side in this game, Alex.
I do too, and I think if you want to make the case for UNLV, you might as well just take them outright to win this one here at home. They're a different team than when they played at San Diego January 6th. They lost that one 72-61. Very good defensively, which they weren't to start the season. So I think that'll be the biggest difference maker in this one, and they can actually hang in there with San Diego State. I really like the under, though. I think it's already moved down. Yep, it's 135, but I jumped in at 136.5 and went under that total because, like I said, I mean, UNLV has been slowing it down. Average possession time offensively, 18.5, and then defensively, they've had a great transition defense lately, 18.3 seconds. On the flip side, SDSU, best defense in the conference. They're also, the ninth best in the country. So if I were to play this, it would be UNLV, but I didn't play the side. I went with the under here. I actually kind of want to look at what the first half under is as well, because I think it might pick up in that second half, but it's going to be very slow at the first half.
Nevada at Boise tonight. Good game to wrap up tonight. These late tips tonight.
Yes.
I wonder if I'll be able to stay awake. Boise 6 tonight.
I thought you were going to try and go to that UNLV.
No, not tonight. I'll be there next week. Conference tournament. I feel pretty certain about that. Boise 6 against Nevada, 141.5. It'd only be a take with the Wolfpack here at 6.
I agree completely. I actually like that play a lot. I mean, they've got the revenge here with Nevada. Boise won the first one, 64-56 on the road. So I know Boise's been really good, but just 9-3-3 against the spread, even at home. So I think the Wolfpack, who is 10-4 straight up and against the spread on the road, has a chance to keep this close and maybe even win this one, upset the Broncos here.
It wouldn't shock me if they pull it out. I still can't figure out Boise.
I'm still with you.
It's March 5th. Still can't figure them out. They're clearly going to the NCAA tournament. They're going to be somewhere in that 7-10 pocket. They're going. They're probably going to make the Mountain West semifinals when it's all said and done. Maybe even win the Mountain West tournament.
I know.
Still have no idea.
I
still
think
have no clue what to do with them. I don't. Every time I watch them, I think one of two things. Well, this team's really good, or wait a second, this team's really like safely in the NCAA tournament. There's no in between.
I know.
They never look like, okay, this team's a reasonable team. It's either one or the other with them.
I know. I still don't get it, but I think they are the latter. I think they are really good, and they've proven it in this tough conference that we've had this year.
All right. Conference tournament time. I did something that was not a usual thing for me. Just strung together moneyline home favorites tonight in these conferences. Of course, Army's losing right now, but that's not surprising. Eastern Kentucky and Stetson and Lipscomb. If you just wanted those three together, I think that's your most rock solid ones. You're not going to get much of a price, if any, on that with those three together. Eastern Kentucky's 8.5 at home against Jacksonville. Stetson's 5.5 at home against Queens. That's North Carolina, not New York. Lipscomb's 7 at home against North Alabama. I think all those are perfectly solid if you wanted to string those together. In the Horizon League, these games when they're at the home site, not the quarterfinals, but this extra early round, the teams at home are really good. Last 12 games, 12-0 straight up, 11-1 against the number. Now, here's the problem with this, though. We're all double-digit favorites in these games. IPFW is 11 against Robert Morris. Cleveland State is 16.5 against IUPUI. And Milwaukee is 12 against Detroit. Now, I laid the 12 with Milwaukee and 16 earlier in the day with Cleveland State. I can count as many times on both of my hands that I've done that this year of laying that many points. But both IUPUI and Detroit are comically awful basketball teams.
Yes, they are.
And they're on the road, and with the dominance that these teams have had at home, in these situations, in this tournament in particular, I don't mind laying the lumber like this. Not quite there on being able to lay with IPFW, because second consecutive game they will have played against Robert Morris. Maybe Robert Morris picks something up from the loss over the weekend to the Mastodons.
So I have 2 plays in that tournament, the Horizon, and I like 2 overs. It's Robert Morris and Fort Wayne over that 147.5 because of the defense that we have from this league and the lack of defense, really. So that one, and then I also like the Detroit-Milwaukee over 153, a little bit higher than I would have liked, but I think they get there. So their first game, 84-61, a little bit lower, but then that second game that they played, 87-71. Again, bad defense, and then a faster pace here, especially for Fort Wayne, IPFW, faster one. So, and then back to your ASUN, I actually did take the points with Jacksonville again, but I like it at 8.5. They have revenge from the first game. They are the best defense in that league. I think they can keep it close enough here, and you're getting some value. I made Eastern Kentucky about a 6-point favorite, so I think you got value with that 8.5.
Those teams are awful on defense. That's my big takeaway from that league. You look at just the Ken Palm numbers of the A-Sun.
Oh, they are, yes. I mean, even as the best.
Here you go. The best defense in the league is Jacksonville.
Yes.
As you just said. They're 223rd in Ken Palm defensively. It's not good.
No. Not.
Florida Gulf Coast went out yesterday. They're 232. And then everyone else is sub 250. Jacksonville, Eastern Kentucky is the defensive matchup. Eastern Kentucky's 268, and they're the third best defensive conference. Brutal. The problem is the totals are high enough because everyone knows that these defenses are awful, Alex. So it's hard to really get in on this more than anything.
We do have 2 more tournaments. Do you have any bets in those 2? Or did you go through all of them?
So Coastal Carolina's up at halftime against
we've started.
Texas State. I'm a little mad at myself because that did pop as a play, and I didn't do it. I don't know why. Coastal Carolina's, they're on Monroe, I should say, against Louisiana Monroe. They're 8-point favorite, 9.9. They're ahead by 9 as a 2-point underdog. There we go. That's what it means.
Okay, yes.
Coastal Carolina's up at halftime. Texas State is a 4.5-point favorite against Old Dominion. These games are in Pensacola. I have nothing on that game.
See, I like Texas State in this one. I am going to lay the points here with this team. I made them about an 8-point favorite. Better defense. I mean, they are 108 in Ken Palm compared to Old Dominion, who is 214. Both of them are not very good offensively. We've got Texas State, who is 297, and then Old Dominion, who is even worse, 304. But really, I mean, it's just a play on Texas State and their defense, 7-3 in their last 10 games. Old Dominion 2-8 in their last 10. So I like to look at current form and how these teams are playing going into the tournament as well. And Texas State is by far the better team.
We have a lot of college basketball to get to the next 2 weeks. We have a lot. By the way, right now here at the South Point, the one conference tournament numbers that are up for Chris Andrews and company. Gonzaga, -120 favorite in the WCC. And St. Mary's is even money. If you bet someone but those 2 teams, you're not going to win. That's all I'll say. San Francisco's at 14-1. Santa Clara is at 25-1. Do not bet anyone below. Don't even consider betting anyone below Santa Clara.
No.
Don't even consider it. But I think St. Mary's will get the better Gonzaga in that title game, and you're going to get a better price. At least, you know what? I'd be interested to see how that game's priced. I would imagine that it would be Gonzaga 1.5 on a neutral.
I think so.
Maybe 2 if they look dominant in the game against San Francisco and the market takes it that way. I think you get around that price or a slightly better price than even if you like St. Mary's.
Right, probably plus 110, maybe
105.
105.
Close.
Yeah.
It's close. It's negligible in the
So,
and St. Mary's will be double digits against Santa Clara. So money line rollover will be actually no, it wouldn't. Money line rollover would be better than that, even more likely than not, unless they're just such a massive favorite. All right, that's all the time we have. Alex, you're back with Matt Never tomorrow. Eli Hershkovich will be with you tomorrow talking college hoops. I'm Jeff Parles. I'll see you again on Thursday when we'll have one of the 3-man weavers and we'll figure out where the Frank is Nicotero. Maybe we'll do that segment. I don't know. Maybe Frank will be dressed as a Dalmatian again. Never know.
Enjoy your day off. I'm sorry you had to split.
Oh,
this
I don't
week,
know. Whatever.
but-
It doesn't matter to me. The days are all the same now. It's March. They're all the same.
That's right.
At this point.
Very true.
Shout out to the crew as always. Jerry, Andrew, Ryan, sticking around. Good work as always. See you again tomorrow. Sports by the Book, 3 o'clock tomorrow, South Point Studio.